I'm Kevin Hoare, and I'm here with the inimicable David Darnell. Welcome to the show, everyone, and glad to be here with you, David.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here, Kevin.
It is the 9th of January, by the way. I like reminding people that we're ticking slowly down through the year towards. I don't know what's going to happen on in November 2024, but it, if all the shit that's been happening so far is any sign, it's good. I don't know.
yeah, the nominating convention for both parties can't come soon enough because I'm really tired of the primary stuff. And then the election should be, I don't know, hopefully we'll know who won the election by Christmas.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I'm pretty sure it's not Joe Biden, no matter what, because I don't think he's going to be the Democrat nominee. I keep saying it. I'm more convinced than ever, especially now that Michael Obama's stepping in and starting to make noise about how awful it would be
Big
if
Mike?
Big Mike, if Donald Trump were to get elected again. And the only reason why they're worried about that is because that's not exactly a vote of confidence in President Brandon and his great campaign that he's running, which apparently Obama's told him he needs to shake up from top to bottom and get a completely new strategy. What they need is they need a completely new candidate. And they know it, but Joe Biden, it hasn't registered with Joe Biden yet because most things don't register with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
That's really the key.
Well, I think it may have been Tucker that said a line that I think is most pertinent. He said that people like Joe Biden don't care about your future because they don't have one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's pretty much it. And of course, I heard a great joke the other day I got to share. So they asked Joe Biden in an interview if he prefers boxers or briefs, and his answer was depends. So, but bum. Well, welcome to all the folks that are loyal followers and viewers. And I think we're going to lead off tonight with a story that we could not find the exact information on last night, and it's just expanded as a story since last night, which is in Georgia, where this RICO case has been filed for some sort of conjured conspiracy that that President Trump was trying to overturn the election in Georgia and various and sundry other nonsense. A Soros-style, highly biased District Attorney Fannie Willis apparently has some skeletons in the closet, and the way this article puts it, the case is going to implode on her, in part because she was having an affair with somebody who she herself hired as a special prosecutor, and that special prosecutor, a private attorney, was in contact with the White House during all of this, making arrangements with unnamed people in the White House in order to coordinate the timing and the particulars of the case, which severely taints the case and makes it look like what all of us knew with more than two brain cells who weren't trying to sell this to the public, that it was timed to distract people from the bad news Joe Biden was getting at that time, and to try and put Trump and everybody on the defensive dealing with court cases instead of being able to campaign, in his case, for the presidency. So it also turns out that this dude was
not qualified.
He'd
never prosecuted a big RICO case, and obviously, I guess it's not an equity hire. What do you call it? A romantic hire. A hiring of convenience, Kevin.
Yes. Well, and And it creates, as this article puts, big fat ethical legal worms that are now squirming exuberantly atop Fannis's prosecution House of Cards, which had problems already. And apparently, this dude made money off of being an unqualified special prosecutor case who was coordinating with improperly with between the DA's office and the Joe Biden White House. He took that money and went on a nice vacation with her. So it's this is like a Hollywood script, isn't it?
Hasn't he been paid $654,000?
Yeah. $654,000. So this is not chump change. And so this reminds a lot of the Lisa Page, Peter Strzok stuff that went on in the DOJ and FBI that led to the fake Trump collusion stuff, which neither one of those people have gone to jail for. And even though the Trump collusion stuff fell apart, it helped affect the 2018 election for sure. And of course was used as a bludgeon to affect the 2020 election and attack everybody around Trump and Trump himself. It affected foreign relations too, because it made it very difficult to work on preventing what eventually became Joe Biden's war in Ukraine, and that he failed to deter or even take action to avert. And so anyway, I guess this guy in Georgia has violated the Georgia rules of professional conduct. He is like just another example of these little search and destroy teams that have been put together to go after Trump in various places. And I'll bet we'll uncover more of these as we go, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure it's a well-organized web, and they can't help themselves doing dirty while they're doing it.
No. And of course the DA now is under significant problems herself on appeal. This is actually going to, I'm sure, be used to try and throw the case out now. But even if that doesn't happen because of who's handling things there in Georgia on appeal, it's probably got a very good chance of getting junked. That's at least what I'm taking away from this.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah, I know. There's always hope. So, yeah, that one really stood out as a story here. And another story, sort of, there's a couple of follow-ups from last night. We covered some of the January 6th stuff that's been going on. And in true unequal justice fashion, Ray Epps, the guy who was accused of being a January 6th informant by many conservatives, who was brought up on some sort of charge.
It was disorderly conduct, I believe.
Disorderly conduct, which is a pretty light charge, actually, compared to inciting, which he was on camera, inciting people to take the actions that they did.
He was seen in more places around the Capitol than any other single person. The guy is fairly easy to spot. He's tall, and I watched a video compilation of the various video clips from that day from around the Capitol, and he was everywhere. And the funny thing about it is, at the end of the day, when I guess he felt that whatever he came there to do, and admittedly to his nephew in a text message said that he organized the whole thing, he made his way through the crowd, surrounded by about 6 or 8 people that were moving him through the crowd.
That's interesting. 6 or 8 people escorting him. Yeah. But this is the headline is that this Arizona man who was accused of being an FBI plant, and you've just added to the accounts that we've heard from this, is in fact going to receive just a 1-year probation sentence for what he was doing.
Right.
Even though you just pointed out he's one of the most egregious offenders, if there is anybody to have the book thrown at them. And frankly, in no way does the Wookiee, the guy in the Wookiee outfit, fall into the Ray Epps category of inciting this.
No. If you were the FBI or whatever organization that was charged with investigating what you thought was an insurrection, or just who caused the riot? I mean, it was a protest made in, as I call it, was a protest made riot by paid agitators. If you were in charge of the investigation, Ray Epps is your number one guy.
Yeah.
Your number one guy by.
If you're trying to investigate a conspiracy, you look at him, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was on, tape, bold as he can be, saying we have to go inside the Capitol, and the crowd around him started shouting "Fed, Fed, Fed," because probably he was a Fed, and all these people get arrested and they get these egregious, onerous sentences. And for some reason, up until now, Ray Epps escapes any serious charges, and now has escaped serious charges.
Has escaped a serious punishment for for the unserious charge. Yeah, and he wasn't arrested for like a really long time. It took like a couple of years, didn't it?
Yeah,
and he was, by the way, he was out suing all these media outlets like Fox News and the Washington Post, The Hill. He was suing all these different media entities, and they're all coming back and getting a motion to have the suits dismissed. And so, yeah, this just adds to the picture that we were talking about yesterday. And January 6th is just a political operation, and it still is a political operation.
It is. It's exactly what we called it on January 18th of 2021. And we'll probably never know. We'll probably never know how it was organized, who the players were. We can just postulate who they are and what they were through what we saw. And the fact of the matter is that protest was made violent by a rather small group of agitators.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a dozen people.
They got where it was because a very small group.
Yeah.
And clearly and there are a lot of dupes that were in the vicinity of them too, unfortunately. But yeah, you go after the agitators. They're the heart of what should be investigating, and they still have
unless you're the FBI investigating it and they work for you, then I guess you just look the other way on Epps and everybody else. And
you're investigating yourself basically, and you're going to say, it looks like I'm pretty innocent here. Plus, we don't have any information on this. I just saw this yesterday, and I can't find it now. But there's a congressman, I forget his name, from I think Kentucky, and he said that he and Jim Jordan in their committee questioned the FBI director. They said, tell us who the agent was that found, or the person, who's the person, not the agent, the person who found the pipe bombs around the DNC and RNC. Who found them? And they won't disclose it. Now, this is not saying that this is the person who planted them, just the person who found them. That's not like confidential information. That's just simply identifying who located it, so you could actually build a history and ascertain also as to why they were found and why so long afterwards there's still no accounting for who put them there.
Yeah.
Which again stinks to high heaven when the FBI director says, I don't know, or I can't tell you.
Yeah. I mean, the FBI stonewalled the whole investigation since day one.
And you can't even call it an investigation. It's essentially an operation, right? It's a political operation, and under the cover of an investigation, in order to dupe the public into using this as a political factor in voting. Is what
And the
it is.
damage has been done, and the FBI doesn't care, right? I assume
Right.
they don't care. I assume anybody that was responsible for what was involved, responsible and or just involved, they don't care. The damage was done. It was the media built it into the great Trump insurrection, and that's what they were looking for. That's what they got. And I don't think media. I don't watch it, so I don't really know what media says. But I don't think media is going to be asking any more questions.
No, I think they're going to be largely uninterested in this all of a sudden as it peters away as an issue. They'll bring it back, but they'll bring it back in the packaged way so that the story can't advance and evolve. Now, in a follow up to our story yesterday about the headline was "There's useless," and then there's Lloyd Austin useless. And I thought that was an excellent story, one that I was proud to cover. And then we found out that not only were all these people out of the loop, the Pentagon itself did not know until this morning exactly what the nature was of his medical condition that caused this. So they didn't.
The Pentagon, the clearinghouse for all intelligence, right?
Yeah, which makes you think the word intelligence isn't the right word anymore for anything going on there, because intelligence is not being employed. It's only gathered and used against Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. It is not used to do things like protect the country or make sure that we can't be subject to a secret attack. Well, Lloyd Austin admitted that he was experiencing, or actually a statement from on his behalf was released saying that he was treated for complications from prostate cancer during his undisclosed absence, which they still can't explain why he didn't tell anyone. The Pentagon spokesman said, well, we're going to examine our protocols. Yeah, you mean the protocols that you should have had in place since, I don't know, we got the bomb, and they didn't even tell Biden, which I can kind of understand. But here's the most egregious thing of all.
Who's Lloyd Austin?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because in the last several weeks, we've had over 13 attacks on U.S. troops that have involved injuries. I guess 50 some troops have experienced like brain injuries from the attacks, the bombing attacks that have occurred. There was actually a cruise missile, an Iranian cruise missile, that was caught and stopped before it could be fired on Iraqi territory, aimed at the U.S. troop locations in Iraq. And we have 2,500 troops there. And they stopped it, but other things had actually been used to attack U.S. troops there. And these U.S. troops have experienced injuries. There's also been attacks on Navy personnel in the Red Sea, in the Persian Gulf, and elsewhere. And so far, these 13 attacks, you know what hasn't happened in the entire time that these attacks have taken place during the Christmas holidays? Two things. There's been no national security meeting whatsoever. None. The principles of the National Security Council, which is the National Security Advisor, the Vice President, sometimes the President also attends, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense. Well, apparently for 13 days, nobody seemed to notice that Lloyd Austin was completely AWOL, having surgery, and it was because they weren't even paying attention to national security at all. They just didn't care that U.S. troops are being attacked.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. Well, like I said before, it just seems like no one's minding the store.
Well, or the people who are minding the store are mindless,
It's like the executive branch of the United States of America has been trained by current and former executive branch members of Oregon.
Yes, they have got the crack team that was in charge of making sure that all the software works in every department in
Yeah.
That's the crack team they got on point for this. Well, I did learn one other nice little tidbit about Lloyd Austin. Apparently, he has a Biden family connection that goes way back. Austin was a commander in Iraq in 2008 and 2009. And on his staff was, perchance, the Joe Biden's eldest son, Beau Biden, the one who tragically passed away from cancer in 2015, worked for Lloyd Austin. So a lot of people were surprised, even some liberal media outlets, when nobody called for Lloyd Austin, called him to account and maybe considered asking him to step down. Liberal media outlets are saying this and questioning whether or not you can actually believe what the president or these spokespeople are saying. And the immediate answer yesterday, while the guy still hasn't told people that it was surgery that he was undergoing, what kind of surgery it was and why, and was out incommunicado for days when there could have easily been some kind of an attack someplace, like the war attacks. They reflexively said, he's our man. We're not asking him to resign. We like what he's doing. And now you know why. If you have this connection to the Biden family, that's all that matters. He could literally take a giant steaming poop right in the press conference room and walk out of there laughing, and they'd be like, he's still our guy. We love him. He's great. He can do whatever he wants. National security be damned. That's Lloyd Austin, folks.
Yep. That's the Biden organization. Friends and family.
Somebody said that this is, I heard somebody describe this as totally on brand for the Biden administration. I thought about that. I'm like, that's their brand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. So I thought this was a pretty interesting story, actually, as well, about the strategic oil reserve. Now, in order to save the 2022 election when gas prices and oil prices are going up, Biden decided to release oil, a lot of it, from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is there technically for emergencies when like a major natural disaster or series of natural disasters, a war. It was created after the 1973 OPEC oil embargo, when we were significantly more dependent on foreign oil than we are today. However, we still import a fair amount, especially for certain grades of oil for certain purposes. And this is a place in, I believe, Louisiana, where they store in 60 salt caverns that are 200 feet wide and 2,500 feet deep underground, an enormous amount of petroleum that they can release, or they're supposed to release, in emergency. However, last year in 2022, I should say, in a political emergency, they released the largest amount that's ever been released from the oil reserve to keep oil prices from going up and keep the price of gasoline from skyrocketing and affecting the election. Well, now the Biden administration has decided that now is an excellent time to replenish that reserve. The problem is that a lot of the reserve was filled at a time when the average price was roughly half of what it is now. So in typical Biden fashion, they take oil that we bought cheaply, ship it out when it's expensive, and then decide to replenish it while it's expensive still, which means that it's going to cost twice as much to fill it as we got value out of what was released. And I think they're totally happy with this because, a lot of it was filled back when the price per barrel was even under $25 a barrel. And of course, at its height, it reached about $100 a barrel, 95 to 100. Now it sits somewhere in the range of $77 a barrel if they were to purchase it now. And this is this is the nonsense that causes enormous amounts of money to be spent. Literally, taxpayers funded the Democrat Party campaign effort in 2022 by releasing this oil, and then now they're
Yeah.
going to pay for it again.
Yeah, sell low, buy high. That's on brand also for the Biden administration.
That is well said. It is on brand. And at some point, all this money is going to matter. Like, it adds up, and you don't get to have a wealthy country if you do stuff like this with big things.
Yeah, just print more money.
That's what they've been doing. And unfortunately, now the cost of the interest on the debt is causing us to roll over debt that we already have in order to higher interest rates that was originally borrowed at lower interest rates. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's going to go up and up and up and up. And
Oh,
there's
it's spiked huge. I mean, $8 trillion is coming up in the next year to refinance, and you're looking at double the interest rate. But the great news is there seems to be every indication from little Fed murmurings, the way they murmur, that they're going to start printing money again. So not to worry, everything will be fine now.
Yeah, they've decided that they've raised interest rates enough, and now they need to pump the economy back up again.
Yep. Yeah. Right before an election, Kevin.
Lo and behold, we're going to pay the price again. Well, actually, they're going to pass this bill on to some future generation who's going to have to pay for it. But
yeah,
I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, the only thing that shocks me is that we didn't have this explosion of inflation earlier than we did.
Yeah, I know.
Given the spending of the last decade or more, well, it's actually been 2 or 3 decades,
Yeah, it has, but it intensified significantly with the Obama administration in 2009, where we found ourselves running, $1 trillion debts, and it's more or less been a $1 trillion thing. Turns out that in just 3 years of the Biden administration, we've gone from 20-something trillion to 30-something trillion. So he's added $10 trillion in 3 years to the debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then and got inflation as a result, which is causing the economy to be unaffordable and destabilized.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah. And I think one of the things that people don't understand is prices are never going back down.
Yeah, they don't go back down.
No, they don't go back down. This is not something that, there was a price raise and it's going to get back to normal. This is the new normal. And that new normal, generally speaking, as I understand it by most experts, if you will, is about 18 to 20% more for, everything. And that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is. And people who are being paid more in order to cope with having higher costs to their standard of living are also never going to take a pay cut, which means that there's just no way for this to go back down. I was at a restaurant for lunch this afternoon or at noon, and it's a nice restaurant downtown in Portland, but there was a wait of maybe 10 minutes to get a seat. Table. And I looked in there and I'm like, half the restaurant was empty. There were a bunch of tables and there was nobody sitting. And I'm like, what are we waiting for? And the answer was labor? They didn't have enough wait staff to actually serve people or to bus the tables or any of that. Yeah. So they're making half the money that they could and making people wait during lunch when people usually just have a very limited amount of time to get in there and get something to eat and then get out. Nice restaurant, but how many restaurants can afford to make half the money they need to and continue to pay people the wages that they are? And of course, being a nice restaurant, it's probably going to be expensive and it's always going to get more expensive. some point, people are like, "Well, I'm not going there."
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, if you have to pay 18, 20% more for everything that you buy, you don't have 18 to 20% of your money to go to a nice restaurant either. You
Yeah,
know, so, rising inflation is an unforced error. If we didn't print the money, we wouldn't have the inflation, and we'd save a lot of problems. But the problem is now, of course, is that we have to print the money to pay for the money that we already printed, and that's a death spiral.
yeah.
Not sure how long it's going to take. I've read experts said anywhere from 10 to 20 years before it's no longer viable. Um, but there seems to be no appetite for stopping the spending.
Yeah.
No one seems to have an appetite for it. The House doesn't, the Senate doesn't, the whoever's in the White House doesn't. So I guess it's just inevitable.
Well,
That,
as long as the appetite for U.S. dollars globally continues, then it can technically just continue, because that's how they've been able to get away with it. Other countries can't do this. Other countries don't have the world's reserve currency that is still in demand and used to trade, uh, you know, investment assets and commodities worldwide. Greece can't do it. They can't just do what we do and say, I think we'll just keep printing money, because then no one wants a drachma, right?
well, yeah, yeah. And if you keep printing dollars, demand for dollars will go down because there's more of them and they're worth less. And once you've printed more dollars than there is value in the world, then you've printed too many dollars.
Yeah, that's right. There's a point where being the least worst currency in the world doesn't actually sustain itself anymore.
Yeah, well, that's where we are now. We're the least worst, so still pretty safe. You're not going to see dictators fleeing, an overthrown government with a suitcase of anything other than $100 bills, U.S. So,
Hmm. Well, speaking of the wealth of nations, an Adam Smith reference there. There's a headline that Oregon is the third poorest state uh, in terms of real after-tax income in the country. It lists
so
only
what? Which one? What's the rank?
we're the third poorest state in terms of real after-tax income. So real income after taxes is
Wow.
after adjusting for inflation and after taking taxes out, because if you pay higher taxes in Oregon, then which we do, then what you're left with is actually how wealthy or well-to-do you are, and we're the third worst. Only
Wow.
Mississippi and Hawaii.
Another
We're
high
below.
water mark for Oregon.
That's right.
Way to
Yeah,
go, Tina and company.
yeah. Tina, she's only been a year on the job, and she's managed to get us to be the third poorest. Super awesome. Well done, Tina.
And as we talked about yesterday, they still want more.
Well, and this has to do with being one of the highest cost states. And in terms of the 50 state average, we're at the 110th percentile. California is at the 116th. They're the highest cost state, and we're like eighth. The states. Then tell me um, uh, what party controls the following states, and I think there's only one exception here.
I can tell you.
So California, Hawaii, Washington, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Hampshire, New York, Oregon, Connecticut, and Maryland. There's actually 2 Republican states in there. Which ones do you think they are?
2 Republican states?
Yeah. Republican controlled governorships, I should say.
Governors. Yeah, it was either
Well, I'm actually not sure about. So Massachusetts is one, and I'm not sure about that because there was Charlie Baker, but I don't know if he's still the governor.
Right.
And the other is New Hampshire, Chris Sununu.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they are technically really blue states in many ways at this point.
Yeah.
So it's really 10 blue states that are the highest cost. They don't want people to afford their states.
A New England Republican is very different.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that is for sure.
They
And
moved to the left in the primary.
yes, no, that's right.
Or they moved to the center in the primary instead of moving to the right in the primary, and then they moved to the left in the general.
That
And
pretty much,
Republicans go, we got to win.
yeah. We just have to be as much like Democrats as possible.
Exactly.
Yay, yay, high cost state. Yay.
Yeah. Well, that's all you have to do to get elected in Oregon. So I've been told by all of the election experts, people from the caucus, and so-called political consultants. All you got to do is be like Democrats, and you can get elected in this state.
Yeah, no, that is the key, is just be indistinguishable from the people that are completely ruining the state, and you'll just get votes like crazy. Yeah. Well, then there was an editorial in the Oregonian that said, entitled "Fixing Oregon in 2024." I always worry about what that means, because you can fix things and put somebody in a fix. I wish they would quit trying to fix things, because whatever they call fixing things, it's actually translated into layman's terms, making things dramatically worse and costing a lot of money doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have different ideas about what fixing Oregon looks like, I'm sure. And the Oregonian probably has very different ideas.
They do. They're obsessed with, because they think Oregon's a fixer-upper, kind of like buying an old house and then flipping it, by putting in some new cabinetry and carpet and flooring. But I don't think they realize how tragically they've wounded the state with their policy. They could never admit that, but they say that the biggest
It's structurally unstable.
It's structurally unstable. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a shotgun shack without the shotgun, since that's not allowed. So, nor are police. But no, they say that we have a severe housing shortage that drives Oregonians out of their communities and into the streets.
Oh,
so the
God.
severe housing shortage has actually caused people to go and do meth in tents. Did you know that? That's amazing.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, because if you can't find a house, someplace to live, it's not like you're going to move someplace else where you can find someplace to live. You're just going to go become a drug addict. I mean, I'm probably taught in schools, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be. And then it says thousands of adults and children are unable to get help for mental illness and substance abuse due to a skeleton network of services, and that K through 12 schools firmly are stuck in mediocrity. These are all true, except for one thing. They're swimming in oceans of money. There's like 3 different taxes that were put into place, including Measure 110's tax on cannabis, the property special income taxes and property taxes in the Portland metro area, all designed to expand these services. And they can't do it because it's the government. They suck.
Well, they're so awash in money, they can't keep track of it, as we talked about yesterday.
That's right. They're losing it. Because
$500 million, man, where'd that go?
Some guy with a fake misspelled Oregon driver's license can just come and get money, and then it just disappears. And they're like, I think we helped someone. I don't know who that was.
Hey, Steve, we're missing $400 million. You seen it anywhere?
Exactly. Well,
ask Linda. Maybe she knows.
Or let's pretend that it's not missing. We'll tell them that they're using the wrong data. And then when they ask us for questions about it, we'll say no comment. There we go. See, wrong data, no comment.
The shrug.
They sure know how to make those questions go away. But the K through 12 schools, they're spending a record amount on the K through 12 public school system in the state of Oregon. They've increased it by double digits every year, the budget, and yet we're firmly stuck in mediocrity. Yeah,
a friend of mine took the Salem Kaiser's total all funds budget and divided it by the number of students, and it was $32,000 per student.
Yeah. You could go to a pretty nice private school for 30. That's Catlin Gable there,
I
by
was
the
going
way.
to say, yeah, probably any nice private school.
Yeah, it's either what's the one I can't remember the name of it, but there's a couple of schools in this area. I think Catlin Gable's probably more like 40,000
Mm.
and a year, but 32 is definitely a couple of the other private schools in the area. That's more than Jesuit, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I know you can't spend that kind of money at a private school in the Salem Kaiser area. That much I know.
yeah.
You can't spend 32,000 a year.
No, there aren't actually schools in that category, right? I think that's the case in
Not at that
Eugene.
price point. No, I mean, I sent my kids to private school down there, and so we looked at all the price points. And when I sent my kids to private school, it seems like it was less than $10,000 a year by the time you do all the other stuff you have to pitch in, for two kids. And at that point in time, it was $11,000 a year per child that the school district that I was paying taxes in was spending.
Yeah.
So it's like half. You know.
Yeah, but there's accountability, and that's probably
Totally.
the real reason why it works, because you take away accountability and you can spend unlimited sums of money, especially if you have a system that doesn't even care whether anybody now can meet reading, writing, and mathematics
Yeah, you
standards.
have no standards.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend $1 billion on every child, and it wouldn't make any difference. It'd be like, I don't know if they can read. I
Yeah,
think it was just the most expensive, 12, um, uh, 13 years of Xbox that you could possibly have. That was it.
yeah.
You
It's a
know,
job. It's a jobs program for people who don't possess useful skills.
or certainly aren't held to account for producing results. And by the way, so as I look at each one of these things that the Oregonian lists are problems, so we just talked about the severe housing shortage that isn't the reason why people are living in tents. The thousands of adults and children unable to get mental illness and substance abuse treatment, despite billions of dollars floating around from new taxes. K through 12 record spending, but they're stuck in mediocrity, so they're going to continue to blame the money. A public safety crisis marked by record traffic deaths and continued gun violence and low faith in police accountability. When the public safety crisis is not caused by a lack of police accountability, it's not caused by guns jumping around and shooting people, it's caused by criminals. And of course, record traffic deaths. If you have people on fentanyl and meth wandering out into the street or driving vehicles, then yeah, you tend to have more traffic deaths because they don't know what the hell they're doing. You can
Yeah,
go and see it anytime you want.
racing on the streets because there's no police stopping them.
That's right. And they say that there's funding woes for transportation. They're swimming in money. They just apparently don't spend it on transportation. That's the big problem. Higher education, where they're just training woke idiots to go out into the workforce and launch strikes against their employers and then spend their evenings lighting dumpsters on fire with Antifa. Gee, I wonder why higher education would backfire under those circumstances. Wildfire fighting, yeah, because they're not doing any wildfire preventing. Workforce shortages and social services, yeah, because there's workforce shortages everywhere thanks to their inflation wage and price spiral that they created. They're saying they don't have enough public defense in the middle of a crime wave. Gee, I wonder why. And then they say that there's entrenched dysfunction in child welfare that they've been in charge of for decades to fix and have made worse. And then they're saying, on top of that, there's mistrust in our institutions and in fellow Oregonians pervades the public dialogue. I think there's good reason for public mistrust when people go and gaslight every other problem that's not causing their issue and do nothing about the problems that are causing them, and then say all we need is more time and more money to fix all of these things. Gee, could that have something to do with the lack of public trust in these institutions? I wonder.
Well, it's pretty rich coming from the Oregonian because who did they endorse in the last election?
I think they endorsed Tina Kotek, didn't they?
I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
and every other uh, Democrat of note in any race that was important to
Yeah. I
them.
mean, they said, let's have more of the same. And you know what they got? More of the same and worse.
I mean, why
Because
don't you
they
take,
actually,
yeah, why doesn't the editorial board take a look at, who they have endorsed and who they carried the water for and who they've covered up for and go, we might be part of the problem.
that would be great if they held up a little mirror and really took that seriously. No, that's absolutely true. And and then you look at some of the policies. Of course, Measure 110 we know about, and they've got this well funded. By the way, none of these entities that are apparently involved with the lawfare and all the stuff that are preventing any of these problems from being addressed, whether it's fighting wildfires or preventing them, I should say, or modifying or getting rid of or replacing Measure 110. They're actually going after the they're going after the people who the ACLU is. They're suing or filing a complaint against the people who want to amend or repeal parts of Measure 110. So while you thought, hey, that's a slam dunk, we're going to get rid of Measure 110. Well, guess what? They're behind the scenes going to war with this group, trying to nitpick some sort of obscure and Byzantine Orwellian filing procedures that have been put into place by the Secretary of State. And this is a letter that was written from the ACLU, Oregon executive director, to the elections director, Molly Woon. Molly Woon, let's not forget, Democrat Party of Oregon communications director when I was the communications director of the state party.
Yeah.
So, she's probably on a first name basis with Sandy Chung from the ACLU. So this is what's really happening in the real Oregon, while the rest of us are looking somewhere else and not paying attention. So the fixed ballot measure 110 campaign is being throttled by the ACLU, the American Criminal Liberties Union.
Yeah.
And by the way, what does the ACLU have to do with Measure 110? I don't get it. Are they fighting for the liberties of people who want to continue to receive money that isn't providing drug and alcohol treatment? Are they fighting for the rights of people to kill themselves with fentanyl and meth and actually commit crimes and in the meantime and face no consequences? What is it? What are they fighting for if they're doing?
Well, they're fighting for the wishes of a contributor or contributors.
Yeah, I think that's it. And somebody's going to contribute to them.
Somebody's written a check, and so they're going to battle for them.
Well, sometimes they don't even need to have the ACLU do this. There are climate lawsuits winding their way through courts in the United States, and there's one that stands out here in Oregon. It was a lawsuit filed by a bunch of climate activists and kids, if you recall. And this, the U.S. Department of Justice has actually asked a federal judge in Oregon to dismiss a climate change-based lawsuit. And this is the Biden DOJ actually asking for this lawsuit to be dismissed. And the judge has refused. And here's the reason why, what the judge gave. It's U.S. District Court Judge of Oregon, Ann Aiken, a Bill Clinton nominee. She said in her ruling, refusing to dismiss the lawsuit, which many of these lawsuits have turned out to have like no merit. They don't even have standing much of the time. But here's what she said. She said the court is, quote, duty bound to provide redress for the irreparable harm government fossil fuel promotion has caused, unquote. She coming at this with an open mind, do you think, as a judge?
Baby.
That's exactly it. She's decided that she is judge, jury, legislator, and maybe even executive branch if she keeps after this. She believes that that the court system should be used to enact policies that are not wanted by the people of the state. The Climate Judiciary Project has crafted 13 curriculum modules and hosted 42 events with more than 1,700 judges across the country in order to train them in the right way to make decisions as a judge. Seriously, the project is the creation of the Environmental Law Institute, ELI. And in their annual report, they described this as a first-of-a-kind resource that provides the judiciary with reliable, up-to-date information about scientific issues in climate litigation. Believe it or not only is this judge in Oregon saying what she says and refusing to dismiss this lawsuit that the DOJ has asked, Biden's DOJ has asked to be dismissed. But there's actually another judge here in Oregon, Michael, what's his name? He's the one that's married to Suzanne Bonamici. And he's an advisor to one of these court cases. Michael Simon, Judge Michael Simon. He acted as an advisor to the CJP. The entity that we just talked about was the Climate Judiciary Project. He's advising them. Why is a judge advising a entity that's trying to get judges to rule a certain way on court cases involving the climate?
It's a great question.
Yeah, this is, and by the way, both sides of this court case are liberals. It's the Biden DOJ against these climate activists. There's nobody representing people who think that they don't really want these policies and they don't want their energy becoming unaffordable and unavailable. Right. There's nobody representing them.
Nobody representing the truth or science.
That's exactly it. Nobody's representing that at all.
Nobody's representing sixth grade science.
No, that's right. Nobody's and of course they have to repeal biology too. Don't forget. And so our last story here talks about a prominent psychologist that apparently during a medical training course talked nonstop about gender transitioning 3-year-olds. Could not stop talking about gender transitioning 3-year-olds. Psychologist Dr. Wallace Wong argued that 3-year-olds know their gender better than their parents while defending transitioning young children. In November 2022, this guy was featured in a training video for the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, an international organization that trains medical and mental health professionals on how to treat transgender patients, including minors. Wong told the trainees that kids are, quote, are at your mercy, unquote, when it comes to convincing their parents to transition them, and claimed that 3-year-olds know their, quote, authentic self, unquote, better than their parents. Parents are so nervous and don't know what to do when their 3-year-old kid presents this kind of a problem, he said in the video. They may think that my child is going to have a vasectomy or phalloplasty, but that's not true. We need to let them know that our goal is to help the kid move step by step, one step at a time, getting to what is their authentic self. Where that will be, I don't know. The parents don't know. The kids will know when it's time, because the kids are the fount of wisdom in our society, according to these people.
Right. Well, Wally Wong needs to go to prison. That's what? Wally Wong needs to go to prison.
I think that's, if they dig into this, that's where it leads. Certainly he should be sued out of existence by the parents, and then later the kids, especially the 3-year-olds who were told that they are empowered to make this decision by Mr. Wally Wong.
And if there are any good and decent people in the medical community, they need to shun him and ostracize him and mock him and put him out of business.
He said that he had, quote, quite a few 3-year-old patients that the first thing many children say is not "Mommy, I love you," but "Mommy, I am not a boy," or "Mommy, I am not a girl."
What a bunch of shit. I've had 4 3-year-olds. None of them said anything even close to that. God,
I know. They don't say anything like that, and they don't say anything coherent, to be honest, along those lines.
God, man, how can people like that say that stuff in front of other people with a straight face? I mean, they must be they're psycho. I mean, they're they're delusional, obviously, right?
Yeah.
You know? And this guy's a psychology expert, apparently. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, he is. And, this stuff has a real impact. In 2021, a Canadian father was arrested for refusing to consent for his teenage daughter to transition. And Wong was the doctor who encouraged the child to begin socially transitioning with the school's help, despite the father not being informed, and later encouraged her to go on to cross-sex hormones, so to do the hormone therapy. That's what this sicko did. And you know what? I don't know, but this Canadian father, he was arrested for refusing to give his consent. I'll bet that if this Canadian father is worth his salt, Mr. Wong might get a visit from a Canadian father.
Yeah.
You
know? Yeah, it's criminal. It's a whole criminal enterprise. I mean, not even beyond just being evil and sick and so far out of the pale of decency and normality, it's criminal. As far as I'm concerned, I think they all should be locked up. The guy up at OHSU, delights in mutilating children, he should be jailed. Listening to him talk, he might like it. I don't know.
There's a certain rot that comes from all this now, because we just, judges that apparently are climate activists instead of actual judges, doctors, psychologists, mental health professionals that are actually activists campaigning for your 3-year-olds to transition their gender. And then this entire lawfare thing where they're going after everybody who might stand up to them. We're going to have to be tough. We're going to have to fight in this. I talk to people every day who say, I don't pay much attention to what's going on. Thank you for filling me in on it. And I'm like, you got to join the fight. Because you know what? The other side, they don't seem to have a limited amount of money. The only money that they run out of is the taxpayers' money. They don't seem to run out of the money to fight all of these battles and then, frankly, take a brickbat to our economy as well, which will leave us unable at some point to adequately fight back. And then we've got people that are doing what they're doing with our justice system on top of that, like we just talked about in the Fannie Willis case, or the Ray Epps betrayal of justice. And then we've got, the lowest level of uselessness, Austin defense secretary, running the country. If that's just not enough to get somebody motivated, they need to hold up a mirror to themselves and seriously re-examine. I'm saying this because I talk to people that are not sure if there's something they could do. If they can't do anything else, they should start writing checks. Start writing checks, because the other side, they're writing checks.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes they're even using your money. So
often in the state of Oregon.
Yep. That's right. Well, that was a blockbuster show here, David. Thank you for joining me for it. And thanks everyone for following along here today. It was a great show, and we'll be back tomorrow. I think Sonny and Don will be back, right? Tomorrow for the next episode.
I believe so. Yeah. I believe Sonny's back on Wednesdays. Last I heard.
We're glad to have her back, and of course Don. And we'll keep bringing this truth to you guys and giving you commentary that you can't hear anywhere else on the Captive Audience. Again, thanks for joining me here, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great night, all, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Captive Audience.